So we all know about the power of compounding. The maths is quite simple. And I like looking at the table at the back of our quarterly commentary to observe the power of compounding in action. The table shows the returns on a portfolio managed by Allan Gray since 1974. And below the table it says, what would have happened to an investment of 10,000 Rand? Well, that's an interesting number because back in 1974, you could have bought a Mercedes-Benz 280 SA for just under 10,000 Rand. Car magazine at the time described it as a car of breathtaking beauty and refinement, and I'm sure it was a great drive. The only thing is, if you'd forgone the Mercedes-Benz and rather invested with our founder, Allan Gray, you would by now have a portfolio which would be able to buy you about 60 to 70 Mercedes-Benz S500s. It really is a story of the power of compounding, which I think we all know the maths is simple at one level, but gives surprising results. It does all look quite easy in hindsight though, and that is misleading, because if you look carefully at this track record over the last 50 years, we've had some really tough times as a firm. There have been 6 occasions on which our real returns have been negative 30 to 40%. You can imagine what that feels like at the time when you say to clients that the purchasing power of your money invested with us has declined by 30 to 40%. It feels terrible. And those times are a real trial, and they really try and stress and test our conviction and also the patience of our clients. Typically took 2 to 4 years to recover from those drawdowns. Now, on an occasion of a 50th anniversary, people like to say, well, what do the next 50 years hold? And I'm very reluctant to make forecasts because who knows what's coming in the next 50 years. The one thing I can say, though, is that we will have more tough times like we've had in the last 50 years. That's just inevitable. We know that equity markets go up and down. You can read that in the standard disclaimers. But we also know that sometimes the market takes a different view to us on investments, no matter how much research we've done and no matter how sure we are of the value that we have derived for a company. The market can disagree with us for a very long time, and that gets uncomfortable. And it's even more uncomfortable when you realize that we're not right all the time. And in fact, to be right just 60% of the time is enough to make you a great long-term investor. So that is the one forecast I will make with confidence, that there are more tough times ahead. And because that's inevitable, the key question is really, how will you face those tough times? How will you face them with the right combination of humility and confidence? And what gives me some confidence is that our founder, Mr. Allan Gray, has built some very strong foundations for us. He's given us a set of guiding principles and values which are enduring and guide our behaviors in a very real and meaningful way. And he set up a long-term, stable ownership structure for the business. Some people sometimes find it ironic when I say that one of those principles that Allan set out for us is that our clients can walk away from us, take their money and invest it elsewhere at any time. And you might think that makes us very vulnerable and is a very weak business model. But Allan used to argue that actually that vulnerability was the source of our strength, because we can never afford to become complacent, and every morning we have to wake up and do our very best to make the best investment decisions we can for our clients and serve them well. That is actually what keeps us honest and protects us. The other thing that gives me some confidence for the future is that we have great people in the firm. So it's wonderful to work with a strong and supportive board, and also with the current leaders of the firm, Mahesh and Duncan. The three of us have all been with Allan Gray for over 20 years, and they're doing a great job leading the firm and bringing through very promising, talented young people who I've got no doubt will prove to be exceptional leaders of Allan Gray in the future. So when reflecting on the last 50 years, it is important to note that there have been some strong tailwinds supporting investment markets and investors. As an example, the S&P 500 index is up by 67 times. Bond yields have been falling for roughly 40 years, all of which has made for a relatively easy investment environment. And when looking at starting valuations today, it's important to realize that those tailwinds may not be there in future. In fact, they may reverse into headwinds, and it's something that we should be prepared for. On the other hand, many South Africans have tragically not had an opportunity to reach for their full potential and achieve it. And that's true for the last 50 years and for all of South Africa's history. We waste so much of our potential as a country, and it really doesn't have to be that way. If we work effectively together, we can empower many more South Africans to reach for their dreams. This is something that we feel strongly about, and we are working hard and doing our best to contribute to making that better future for South Africa.